There's something about working together with other people towards a common goal that binds us and joins us at a very, very deep level.
Yeah.
Uh,
Welcome to Jess on the Mountain, a podcast about yoga, chakras, and becoming your own guru. I'm Jess Goulding, and today we have the distinct pleasure to speak with Charles MacInerny, a master yoga teacher and community leader here in Austin, Texas. He has so much to share with us about the creation of Free Day of Yoga, which is a long-standing Labor Day tradition here in Austin, Texas. Whether or not you live in Austin, this episode will delight and inspire you. Because you're a yoga student, a yoga teacher, or a yoga-curious human, this is part of your yoga DNA. The fact that this is happening somewhere in the world of yoga, it matters to you too. You are part of something bigger. So I hope you will see the tremendous possibility that you'll be inspired to connect during this time of chronic loneliness. And practice listening through those chakra-savvy ears. You will hear all about open-heartedness, loving support, ties to community, the toxicity of gossip and financial fear, the benefits of taking action on creative impulses, and fostering a healthy attitude around money. All that, and a really funny story about a yoga talent show. So a little bit about Charles. He is a certified yoga therapist and has been a full-time teacher of yoga, meditation, and mind-body skills since 1989. He teaches ongoing classes here in Austin, and he offers yoga workshops at studios around the country, and he leads yoga and meditation retreats as well as yoga and writing retreats throughout U.S., Mexico, Costa Rica, and Guatemala. He is the founder of Expanding Paradigms, through which he regularly presents at national and international conferences and offers training for businesses, hospitals, education, and government. He's written articles for numerous magazines, including Yoga Journal. Charles has created and run 2 cardiac yoga programs for Seton Hospital and for the Austin Heart Hospital. He's been a keynote speaker for 2 cardiac conferences sponsored by Seton Hospital, along with numerous other conferences around the country. Most recently, the International Association of Yoga Therapy Conference in 2014, and again in 2023. Charles is co-founder of the Free Day of Yoga, the Living Yoga Teacher Training Program, and the Texas Yoga Retreat. You can visit his primary website at yogateacher.com. I will link to that in the show notes. And as always, this episode is brought to you by chakra-savvy Reset Your Life Game Plan, the online deep dive, step-by-step energetic overhaul to bust through blockages and come home to your truth, reignite your intrinsic power, and create your best life. You can always learn more at jessgoulding.com/chakra-savvy or on the podcast page of my website, jessgoulding.com/podcast. The next cohort will begin in January. So now I bring you What is Free Day of Yoga with Charles F. MacInerny. Welcome, Charles MacInerny, to Jess on the Mountain. So glad you are coming here today to talk to us about Free Day of Yoga.
I'm delighted to be here.
Good, good. So it's coming up September 2nd, 2024, but it happens every year on Labor Day, except for the couple of years we took off during COVID. And so I've been lucky to be part of these meetings where we're gathering, some of us teachers and studios, to talk about rebuilding Free Day of Yoga here in the Austin community and beyond. And every time I come to these meetings, I'm very inspired by your presence there, specifically because you were there at the beginning and you so beautifully tell the story of the beginning of Free Day of Yoga. And so I would love for you to just share with us first, what is it? What is Free Day of Yoga? And then the story, it's part of our lore. So if you wouldn't mind.
So Free Day of Yoga is really an opportunity for yoga teachers to give back to the community and to thank their students. And then it's also an opportunity to help introduce new students to yoga that might have a little reticence to pay money and come, but a free day is less formal. And then it's also a wonderful opportunity for a student that's had a home practice or done from a book to come to a class and meet teachers. And then the fourth place where it really shines is it allows students to take 2 or 3 classes, some even 5 or 6 classes in one day, going to different studios and different teachers. And so it's really helpful trying to find a good match, trying to find a style of yoga that really suits your personality and your body type. And then finding a connection with the studio sometimes, or sometimes it's a connection with a specific teacher.
Yeah, you're bringing up such a beautiful point that it's a match. I love that word. That there, I've also believe there is a yoga teacher and a practice for every person out there who's interested.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Okay, so you wanted to talk about
how
how
did it
Free
happen?
Day of Yoga got started.
Mm-hmm.
So the initial thing was there was 7 or 8 yoga teachers in Austin at the time. And I think Peggy Kelly, and Peggy's moved now, but Peggy Kelly was the only one that had a studio at that point. And so we started hosting meetings at her studio once a month, or 2 or 3 times a year, depending. And we very informal, would get together, we'd practice, we'd all be doing kind of our own practice, but then we'd talk to each other. And then it was usually me, because I was the one of the newer teachers. Peggy had already been teaching for 5 or 6 years at that time. And I would go to Peggy and I'd say, I have a student has a rotator cuff injury and I'm having trouble helping them in down dog. And so it became this informal thing where we would share and talk to each other. And so that had been going on for maybe 5 or 6 years. Well, I guess about 7 years. And then someone called a meeting, and the Austin Yoga Teachers Association really doesn't have, it still doesn't. There is no association. There is no LLC. There's nothing. Anyone can claim to be a member. Anyone can call a meeting. Someone may or may not show up if someone calls a meeting. It's very, very informal. But someone called a meeting and to let us know that the Southwest Yoga Conference had decided to host their next conference in Austin. And so by that time, there were about 25 teachers, and I think almost everyone showed up for the meeting. And the initial thing, the person who had called it was very concerned that an outside group was just showing up in our city and going to offer a conference, and that, it's our city. We could do a conference. And so the initial 5 minutes was a little grumbling from a few people. And at some point after that settled down, I asked the group, is anyone here actually willing to put on a conference? And everyone got real quiet. No one said anything. I said, well, why don't we support this one then? And so from that point on, we really started to shift gears. And that was probably one of the funnest meetings, because by the end of the meeting, the next meeting, by the end of 2 meetings, we had come up with all kinds of ideas. One was each one of us got to adopt one of the presenters. And so Rodney Yee, Judith Lassiter. So I adopted Eric Schiffman. And so I met him at the airport, and I took him to his hotel, and I got to visit with him and hang out with him and drive him around Austin. And so that was really fun, because I've loved Eric from far, but that's the first time I'd actually got to meet him. We raised money and we put on a banquet for just the presenters without us being there. Just a time for all the presenters just to be there and hang out with each other. And we found a hotel, Casa de Luz, Eduardo. I asked him if I could put up a poster at Casa de Luz, and by the end of the meeting, he had opened up his hotel and housed all the presenters that wanted to stay there for free.
Wow.
For the weekend.
Well, I just got chilled.
And so there's this very strong response from the community, the entire community coming together. And the Southwest Yoga Conference was so impressed that they decided to make Austin their permanent home. And they fully intended to do that. They came back a second year, did it again, and then the Austin city screwed them over on the convention center. And I just go, really, really, and so they moved to Palm Springs their third year. Now, the first 2 years, the very first year, I was a little upset because Austin at that point had some very, very, at least 5 strong teachers. And the Southwest Yoga Conference, when they showed up, they invited Peggy to teach a workshop and they invited me to teach a workshop, and that was it. And they had like 45 teachers coming in. And I was thinking, with that many slots, there could have been more room for Austin teachers. They could have found room for 3 or 4 more. And so I came up with the idea of adding an extra day to the conference unofficially, and that Austin would host anyone that wanted to stay one more day in Austin, that the Austin yoga teachers would offer free yoga classes all day. That's kind of how it got started. And the first year, the conference loved the idea, so they helped support us by sending out in advance, before people started buying plane tickets, inviting them to stay in the hotel. Book 1 extra night in Austin, will entertain you. And so I think we had something like 1,100 people that first year, and we had about 25 about 7 or 8 studios, 25 or 30 teachers. I taught about 3 workshops, and most of the workshops, it was fun, but it was more of a circus atmosphere, because sometimes we'd have 40 people show up in a small studio.
Yeah.
And
was there a lot of students from Austin as well as those flying in?
Yes, I would say it was about 50-50.
Okay.
And the next year, a lot of people from Houston and Dallas had come to the conference. And so the following year, they told all their friends in Houston and Dallas. And so the second year at the Free Day of Yoga, we had a surprising number of people. There was one group that showed up at one of my workshops, and when I did a little check-in, there was 6 of them, and they'd all come up from Houston in a van, and they'd hit their first yoga class at 7 a.m. and they'd been to like 5 classes by the time they came to mine, and they were high. They were laughing, and they were just so happy. So there were people driving down from Dallas and across from Houston the second year. And that continued for quite some time until Houston and Dallas started their own Free Day of Yoga.
Good for them.
But there was about 4 or 5 years where they were coming to Austin for the Labor Day celebrations. Yeah.
Very exciting.
So after the second year in Austin, Southwest Yoga Conference came. And this is kind of a culminary point in the reputation of Austin and Austin Yoga. When I travel around and go to conferences and events out of state and Houston and Dallas, one of the things I hear that I was very surprised was that they didn't have a strong sense of community. You have community within a studio, but there's not a yoga community that is spread out. And that's even in small towns, big towns. In fact, a lot of people talking bad about other studios, and I was just kind of surprised. I just assumed everywhere was like Austin, and
it wasn't like that in New York. I'll tell you that there was some side stuff going on.
San Francisco, Portland, Seattle, all these places I've been. When I've been there, I've been trying to find some community there, and went to Tyler and sent out I was doing workshops there at a studio, and I asked the studio owner, and I said, wouldn't it be nice if we had a little potluck for all the yoga teachers in Tyler? And she said, yes, I'd love to do that. And I said, well, how many people should we expect? She says, well, there's 6 yoga teachers, and so maybe 4 or 5. And so I said, fantastic. So we put up some little notices, told the people we knew, and about 13 teachers showed up. Wow. None of them knew that there were 13 yoga teachers. All of them thought that there's 3 or 4 teachers because they'd never been in the same room together. And so that seems to be very common phenomenon. But I think the turning point for Austin, where our community really, really shifted, was at the second Southwest Yoga Conference, and they had a talent show. And so they invited Austin yoga teachers to participate in the talent show. And it's going to be on the last night, Saturday night. And so I was really excited, and Murti, who did healing yoga, and Peggy Kelly and Devin Diedrich, there's a whole group of teachers, and they asked me to join it. And I said, fantastic. And I said, what's involved? They said, well, we're going to meet twice a month for the next 3 months. And I was looking at my calendar, and I was teaching 21 classes a week and doing retreats in Mexico. And I just said, there's no way. I just can't do that. And all I saw was how much work it's going to be. The commitment of time. Yeah. And so the day of the conference starts, and then the talent show starts, and I'm sitting there. And I think it started with the Swenson brothers, David and Doug, and this beautiful, I didn't know her, but a beautiful female teacher. And the three of them come out and do synchronized level 4 Ashtanga yoga together. They all press up into a handstand in slow motion, and then from the handstand they start to do their stuff. And I'm watching this, and I'm thinking the Austin yoga teachers are back there behind stage. I'm going, I hope they aren't watching this, because they've got to follow. And I'm just going, oh God, I'm so glad I'm not backstage watching this, knowing I have to go out there next. And then a belly dancer came out in full regalia. And she goes up into Ardha Chandrasana, into half moon. Beautiful pose. And then in the pose, she starts belly dancing. And I'm just going, oh my God, I'm so glad that I don't have to follow that. And so I was really feeling so bad for the Austin yoga teachers, backstage, because they've got to come out. And so after 4 or 5 acts, the Austin yoga teachers come out, and they line up in three lines. There's about 15 of them. And then they put on Krishna Das Pilgrim Heart.
Oh, that's.
And that was the first time anyone had heard it. Murti had discovered, and so Murti had found out about this, and so hardly anyone in that hall had ever heard Krishna Das before. And then the Austin yoga teachers did very simple, clean yoga together. Not showing off, not going deep, each one going to their own level and all moving together to that. And it was so moving that I had to nudge the person next to me. And I said, I'm an Austin yoga teacher too. Those are my peeps. I was so proud of them. Oh. And after that, everyone was talking about the Austin yoga teachers, all conference. We're talking about the Austin yoga teachers for the moment. And of course, looking back, I just saw the commitment of time.
Yes.
But there's something about working together with other people towards a common goal that binds us and joins us at a very, very deep level. Yeah. And so that's kind of when Austin got this reputation for that. And that was in large part with Murti and Peggy Kelly and Devin Diedrich and all these other teachers that did that. Oh, so then Austin wouldn't cooperate with the conference, started playing hardball, trying to raise their rents and everything. And they finally said, screw this. And they moved to Palm Springs.
They hadn't heard yet that it's not a huge moneymaker when you give a...
compared to other things, yes.
Yeah.
But anyway, water under the bridge. So after they moved, we had a meeting of all the Austin yoga teachers, and to kind of debrief. And then the big question was, well, do we want to try to do this without the support of the conference? Do we think we can without any help marketing? And so the consensus was to move forward with it. And so from that point on, Austin started doing it on their own. And I didn't mention Sharon Moon, and Sharon Moon played a big part with the original 2 Free Day of Yoga. And so Sharon did a lot of the background entering email addresses and helping
Oh,
get everything
the
ready for the
drudgery of the
website.
event.
Yeah, so she's very, very, very organized. And so Sharon Moon did a lot of work. And I think Sharon did the first 2 years, and then Donna Belk offered to step in. And Donna carried it forward for, I guess, 7 or 8 years. And then it's kind of passed from person, Mary Esther, took over. And now it's Laurie is at the helm now.
Yes.
So one of the interesting things happened after the first year we did it on our own. And by that point, we had about 35 teachers that were participating in it. And after the free day of yoga ended, we had a big meeting and to debrief. And one of the things that it's very interesting, I use this when I do business of yoga with teacher training programs. I tell this story. We first just went around the circle and let anyone that wanted to talk. And two people, I won't mention names, but two different people from different studios that own studios, both said the same thing, or one said it and the other agreed. And that was that the free day of yoga actually costs money for a studio, air conditioning and this, that, and the other, and that they'd put out a little bucket asking for donations for the studio. And then someone else said they'd done the same thing. And that wasn't, what the original intent was. However, we don't tell anyone, there is no organization. Everyone's free to do what they want. But I just kind of noticed that there were two people that asked for donations. And then at the very end of the meeting, the very last question was, how many people felt like you picked up business? And I personally had 3 people sign up for my Mexico retreat, which is, big money. And plus that's just what I know about. And every single hand went up except for the 2 people that had asked for donations. And that just kind of hit me. Just noticing they were the only 2 people that didn't put up their hands. And that gave me a lot to think about. And I think part of it was, I don't think it was as much the fact that they asked for donations. I think part of it was that was a symptom. Asking for donations was a symptom of an inner fear that their studio wasn't going to make it. And so I think it was that the donations was a symptom. I think the real problem was that both studios were struggling and that the owners of the studios had started to get scared. And so anyway, that's something that kind of has stuck with me ever since.
Yes, I mean it's a human problem.
Yeah.
But the free day of yoga and everything that you're describing, this long history and all the stories that are weaving, it is way bigger than any one studio making money or not making money. And I think if we all tap into what is this bigger thing that we're attempting to serve, then that's what is the most life-giving. And whether that shows up as money or joy or, just building relationships, that's what's at the heart of.
Yeah.
Let's see, continuing on about free day of yoga. It's a beautiful history, and it went all the way up through COVID, where we had to take a little break, step away for a moment. And then thankfully it came back a couple of years ago when Castle Hill Fitness and Lori and Lisa at the helm brought us all back. And that's when I got to meet you, thankfully. And so slowly studios are signing up and it's seems to be blooming even more. I'm seeing it on social media. A lot of studios are doing it. So a lot of students are going to get either remember how it is and yay, my Labor Day is planned out for me again. I love this. Or they'll be introduced to it for the first time. So
yes.
Yeah, coming up September 2nd. A couple of questions. One, what are our hopes for this? I know that we're looking to expand free day of yoga. Are there other places picking this up?
Yes. So Houston and Dallas and Clear Lake have been doing it every year. And then in California, Oakland and LA have done it. I don't know if they have come back after COVID. But prior to COVID, they had active free day of yogas running.
Nice. California.
Then we had one Austin yoga teacher that moved to Guam. And so she set up a free day of yoga in Guam. So
International.
yeah. So our hope is this year we've got the University of Texas is going to host a free day of yoga. It'll be on campus in the morning, and they have a group of yoga teachers. A lot of them, maybe most of them, are students at UT who then teach yoga through the rec sports program. And so they're going to put on a yoga class, and it's the first year they've been involved. And then moving forward, I've been talking to the Yoga Alliance, and my hope is that they will come on board to help get the word out to other communities. And then Austin Yoga will put together a little packet on how to start your own free day of yoga for small towns or big towns or cities, and that Yoga Alliance will help us to kind of get it to spread out a little further. They weren't able to help this year, but that's because of they're in the middle of a transition. But the person I'm talking to there says, please, please, please reach back to us next year.
Okay.
We're hoping next year.
Yeah, if there's a studio out there who would like to start this, in their own community, at their own studio, in their own towns, who should they talk to now? We'll put it in the show notes for sure. Who would you recommend?
Yeah, they can reach out to me.
Okay, great.
So yeah, Charles at yogateacher.com.
Everything. Yeah. I love how you got yogateacher.com.
Yeah.
Yeah. Brilliant. Okay. Almost last question for, what would you say makes a successful free day of yoga for the student? What would that, just briefly, what do you hope for them?
A couple things. One is to pace yourself. If you haven't, a lot of times people that are new to yoga don't realize that yoga can actually be a lot of work. And so you want to be kind of careful about not overdoing it. But within that, a lot of people take 3 or 4 classes spread out over the day and do just fine. The trick is to make sure you don't take 4 yoga classes, all of them, really, really big, strong, hard classes.
I've been looking at the schedule. There's a lot of variation. So a meditation class might be a good physical break.
Yes, and working in some restorative. And so if you have a wide selection of different styles of yoga, then that tends to work really well. And our hope is that you'll find it'll give you a chance to try out several studios. And I think one of the most important things for for your practice is to have convenience. And so what I would suggest is start closer to you and try out the studios that are most convenient to your location or to your life where you work. If you're doing it after work, it could be somewhere around your office. But look for convenience and then see if you can find a home. And then if not, then expand out a little further. And you can also, if you have a home practice, then you don't need to do yoga with a teacher every week. If you have a good home practice, I think it's still important to work with a teacher. Otherwise, you get into a rut. You get into repetition, and connective tissue fascia doesn't like repetition. It likes a little variety. But if several times a year at least, you work with a teacher you really love, just to bring some new energy into your personal practice.
Beautiful.
And of course, at the end of the day, my hope is that you feel better.
Yes.
Yes, not worse.
Yeah.
And when you wake up tomorrow morning, you feel better.
At a minimum, feel better at the end of the day. Yeah. Feel more calm and everything. I'm excited to join as an online studio. Do you know if others are doing online?
I have not heard yet. I'm hoping so.
Okay. Because often studios have that hybrid.
I think Pure Yoga is set up. And so I think Pure Yoga will be offering something. They may be filming regular yoga classes and broadcasting live would be my guess.
Okay. Yeah, because we have a lot of podcast listeners who aren't in Austin.
Yes.
And so it would be great for them to be able to check out the schedule and and participate and get inspired to do this in their towns as well. So I'm hoping there's a big butterfly effect just from our conversation. Good. Finally, Charles, where can we find you? You have so much going on with Free Day of Yoga, Texas Yoga Retreat, Full Moon Yoga, Passion and Purpose. I mean, there's a whole side of you that that I'm excited. I'll put the links to the show notes, but yoga and writing, yoga adventure in Mexico. Where would you like people to go to find you and learn more about you?
So my website is yogateacher.com, and I put everything there. And then I send out a newsletter if you're in Austin once a month. And it's a reminder and invitation for my free full moon yoga class. So I offer a free class once a month. We meet at an outdoor location, watch the sunset, the moon rise, do a little yoga. It's kind of a grass meadow, but on top of a hill with a view of the lake. And it's near 2222 in Mopac, so it's fairly central, fairly easy to get to. And then if you are not in Austin, I send out a newsletter about 3 or 4 times a year, and that lists the bigger events, the Mexico retreats and weekend retreats and the Texas Yoga Retreat and things like that, and then a little essay on philosophy. So you can just email me, charles@yogateacher.com, and just mention that you'd like to be on the newsletter, and then whether you want to be on the Austin newsletter or the if you just put your city, I'll know whether to put you on the monthly list or both. Yeah, or both. Yes.
Well, Charles, this was delightful. I know you'll be teaching at Free Day of Yoga, as will I, and I look forward to kind of teaching together, although separately with the rest of the teachers here in Austin, and hopefully we'll get it beyond.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure visiting with you.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.